Hello people of the internet, it's Amanda, and today's video was sort of like a character analysis slash in defense of an anime character that I really didn't expect a lot of people hated. I'm talking about Midoriya Izuku or Deku from Boku No Hero Academia. Now I know for a fact that a lot of people tend to just not like a certain character from an anime or any type of series, no matter what it is, no matter how large scale or how mainstream it is. However, for this one, the hate is just a lot. There are a lot of strong opinions about him being a shonen protagonist and stuff like that. And it was just quite surprising to me because even if I love anime, I usually steer clear of Facebook groups or Reddit threads that talk about anime in general because of the fear that I'm gonna be spoiled. So I usually use these types of groups for research just to learn what people are saying about certain things, and then I just opt out of them completely. But then recently I started to immerse myself more in them, and I mean, to be fair, my only reason was for the memes. But that's when I started discovering a lot of opinions about certain characters, specifically for Deku. So that's how I ended up looking at more forums or discussions about his character and why people seem to really hate him. And I ended up with 5 things that people repeatedly say about his character. Number 1, he cries a lot, he's weak, and he puts a shame to the whole underdog narrative. Number 2, he's too nice, he's too pure, he's too good, and the character consistency that he has definitely leaves no room for any more character development. Number 3, his hero name is shit. Just that. Number 4, he's a massive nerd who has no originality. I mean, he still uses names from All Might's signature moves instead of creating his own. Last but not the least, number 5, he's boring. Flat out just boring. I mean, I can definitely see if a lot of people see this type of pattern, then obviously it's there. It's kind of not appropriate to just deny it simply because I don't feel the same way about a character. On the flip side, I also want to share my perspective as to why I feel like he has to be this type of character, especially given the entire narrative or the entire theme of what Boku no Hero Academia is about. First things first, the whole idea of he cries a lot, he's a weakling, but then again, he puts a shame to the whole underdog trope. Now, for this one, I mean, the first thing that initially comes to my mind, and I absolutely agree with the whole crybaby thing, but then it's not like he's the only character in the series that did cry. You have other shonen characters who are in the who started out as underdogs, but they're definitely a lot different from how Deku is like. So to make that comparison, it's something that's really easy to do. However, in my opinion, I think generally shonen characters are often portrayed as, even if they're at a disadvantage, they have this certain spunk, this special ability in them that makes them, that makes you want to root for them and stuff like that. And I agree, there are a lot of other characters that are written better than how Deku is as supposedly this underdog character that we should be rooting for. I think here it's a vital element of his character. Mainly because, I mean, he started out as a superhero fanboy, living in a world where everyone is special. So how can you be special in a world where everyone else is special? And then you sort of aspire to be that level of special just to find out that you're not cut for it. Do you get what I mean? Personally, I think with this type of character arc, one way that he could have gone as a character is that he could just be an angsty, bitter type of protagonist with this sad story about him of being quirkless and not being worthy and always having this downer attitude that we can still root for because of all the angst. I feel like that could get tiring, especially with the narrative that we're going at, where this is supposed to be about a top hero, a hero that everyone is looking up to, with the image of All Might like just branded in our minds as soon as the first episode started. So I feel like him being a crybaby is sort of like justified in a way, that he was, one, traumatized a lot by this person that he sort of like sees as this image of victory and strength and being a super in a way, which is Bakugo. Number two, just not having to, just knowing that you can't be what you dream to be simply because in a natural level, it's not even circumstantial, but just you, genetics alone, just can't be it. That's kind of harsh. So he's definitely a sensitive type of character, and there's justification for him to be this way. And I personally, like, the first episode made me really cry, because of the circumstance of just realizing that you can't be who you want to be because of natural circumstances, because of something that you can't change within yourself. At least that's what we're made to believe in the first episode. Another thing that I would want to highlight is that the fact that human nature is just so innately attracted to strength, to bravado. That's why in shonen it's definitely like one of the main aspects. Like, there's this run to still has a lot to prove, but at the same time they know how to carry themselves, they're confident and stuff like that. And so we're much more attracted to these types, and especially with Boku no Hero Academia, where you have Bakugo, where you have Todoroki, where they're really like, their strength is manifested in a more tangible type of level. So it's easier to relate to them on that, and it's easier to be attracted to them, mainly because that's just how we're wired to be as humans. And I'm not just talking about anime or pop culture, but that's the dynamic of the whole animal kingdom in general, like in real life, is that we are attracted to strength. And so with this type of character where vulnerability is offered to us on a silver platter, it's quite easy to see why a lot of people simply are not attracted to Deku's character. Another thing is people love comparing it to Tanjiro from Kimetsu no Yaiba, and I think for this one, like Tanjiro is definitely the good guy, the nice guy, and they have this sort of like parallelism. But at the same time, their circumstances are also different. I mean, initially, Tanjiro already has this like fatherly, family man type of instinct in him that really separates him, or definitely has this like pinpoint this drive inside of him already. I do understand where people are coming from comparing these two, especially since, you know, they're within the same generation and overlaps and almost have like very similar, very overlapping personality types when it comes to the main characters. But again, I think the circumstances here are different, and I have to move on to my second point to prove it even further. Boku no Hero Academia, again, as I mentioned, how do you become special in a world where everybody else is special? Everybody loves character development. Like, that's the hardest thing to get right when it comes to any piece of work, really. So it's definitely like curious to see, or it's definitely understandable and justifiable as to why a lot of people seem to think like, given his character, he seems so well-rounded, he's smart and everything, and his fatal flaw only seems to be the fact that he couldn't really master this power that was given to him. It definitely can come off as really annoying and unexpected, especially for a protagonist of the show. I mean, you can understand it if it's a side character, but for this one, it can definitely get tricky. But then, in my opinion, it always comes down to what we were shown in the first episode of the anime. It flat out just goes back to there. Now, what am I talking about? Wanted to be a hero. The idea of being a hero who saves lives, who people just admire and look up to. But then at the same time, if you don't have the power, you can't be. And even All Might himself thought that he has to be realistic, maybe because like, how can you be a hero if you're quirkless? But then we are given this scene where Bakugo, who treats him like crap, to be fair, he still had this urge to, and again, as illustrated in the anime, he moved even before he could think. his body just reacted as if it was instinct for him to save someone else's life. And it wasn't even the first time in that episode where that happened. There is this thing in their childhood where he was seen trying to protect a playmate against Bakugo's bullying back when they were younger. So Deku himself, like, that is both his strength and his weakness. He has this thing about saving lives with disregard to his own safety. And along with the insecurities that he definitely feels like he has to work harder than everybody else, even when other characters surrounding him actually find him as an inspiration. Like, we've seen multiple characters think, what would Deku do in this situation? That is his role in this entire narrative, and I do feel like that's when character interaction comes in. Now again, I do agree with the whole he's too good, he's too pure. Often in anime in general, we're often presented with characters almost like sits through the gray area. They can neither be just too good or too bad. And I think because we relate to that as people, like, obviously there are no people who are just 100% good or 100% bad. Kind of annoying to see a character who's just innately good. However, for a narrative that talks about heroism at its core, it has to be something that's selfless, that really exudes altruism, even forgetting your own self. And at the same time, it also has something to do with this idea of doing something for others without manipulation, without any tinge of malice. And I think that's what Deku's character is trying to symbolize for this entire narrative. I mean, basically every other character that we've seen that is surrounding him has their own motive as to why they want to become a hero. For Bakugo, he wants to be the strongest. For Todoroki, to sort of like leave the shadow of his dad. And for Ochako, it's money, obviously. I mean, most relatable character out there. Every single character that is surrounding him has their motive as to why they become a hero. But as for Deku, it's this innate factor of idolizing heroes and the thing that they do, the way that they alleviate the problems of people because they save lives. And I think that's what his character really stands for. So it makes sense that he has to be good, he has to be pure in a way, because he teaches this to the other characters surrounding him, and that is the main point of his character. I mean, even again, going back to the first episode, he even inspired All Might himself. If you're not sure as to what I'm talking about, basically, remember All Might is not in his best shape anymore when Bakugo was sort of like captured by the sludge monster. But then when he saw Deku just running there, this quirkless boy who absolutely can't do anything about it but just throw his bag, where other people surrounding them have quirks, no matter how strong or weak it is, they are much more capable than he is to save Bakugo, but they didn't really do anything. But for him, he just raised and sprinted to do something about it, and that reminded All Might as to what a hero should be like. It has to be this idea of forgetting who you are and just doing something for someone else. And that is the main message of this entire thing. Even like All Might himself, you know, he's a symbol of peace, and even if other characters or other heroes don't necessarily, like, he's not necessarily friends with them, Endeavor being the best example, they still look up to him because they feel like they have to catch up to his idea of heroism, of peace. And it's the same thing with Deku, because his type of heroism is the fact that giving it your all, giving it your 100%, giving it the ultimate plus ultra to just save someone. And it's even shown in the parallelism between him and Mirio. Like Mirio, it's manifested in his name, Lemillion, that he wants to save a lot of people. That's his main goal, to be a hero. Whereas for Deku, it's about it in my Chisaki versus Deku reaction video, that to him, his main idea is that if he can't save one person, how can he save a lot of people? So he's always been about this. He's always been about not leaving people behind. You're just one person. So that's what Deku's character stands for. And I do understand that it kind of sucks if this character is just too good for his own good, but that's what makes his character helpful in this entire narrative. So even if you don't like his character, you have to admit that he has something to do with the development of whoever your favorite character is in this narrative. Even Stain himself, who only recognizes All Might as the ultimate or the epitome of what heroism should be, recognized Deku's effort because, again, he exudes this type of pureness, goodness, heroism that is without malice. And I think that's definitely the biggest takeaway for this particular aspect of his personality. As I mentioned names earlier with Mirio, let's move on to Deku's own hero name. Now for this one, I have to admit I also find it shit. I mean, I get the meaning behind it, which I will be elaborating in a bit, but just on the surface itself, I mean, it kind of sucks as a hero name. So I just have to go ahead and say that. However, it's also quite interesting because it reminded me of a quote from Game of Thrones from Tyrion Lannister, which says that never forget who you are, the rest of the world will not. Like, wear it like an armor so that the rest of the world can't use it against you. And the thing is, Deku is a derogatory nickname that was given to him by Bakugo. But then again, here he goes, introducing he can sort of like restart himself and create this new image of himself once he enters UA, but he didn't. He still owned the name, and he even made it his hero name. Like, it's something that using this weakness or this label that is used to hurt you or meant to hurt you and championing it is something that I feel like is very beautiful. It's not the most appealing superhero name, again, but it does make sense. And with that, I also want to highlight how overall, just generally for this anime, I like how they use the word quirk for the special abilities that you have. Mainly because initially, when people say quirky, it definitely just it immediately means like a flaw or some kind of weirdness, right? But here, they champion the word, which is very similar to how Deku is championing this derogatory term against him. Another thing that I like about this particular anime, just to put it out there, is the fact that quirks or the powers that they have are not absolute. Like, they have weaknesses, there are side effects to them, there are consequences when you use them, and these people are trying to like overcome them or to work around them, because in real life that's really how it is. Like, powers, no matter how they aren't absolute. Skills aren't absolute. Talents aren't absolute. There are always downsides to them. It's just that how you overcome them that matters. Now, moving on to number 4, since we're talking about quirks and powers now, let's move on to the fact that Deku is still this massive nerd who doesn't have originality. Now, I have to agree, it's also one of the things that I'm really annoyed at. Like, he still uses the, like, I understand because I'm a massive fangirl as well, but it kind of like sucks that you're trying to be your own hero and at the same time you're like the signature moves or the name of your signature moves is still inspired by someone else. It's direct copyright infringement, Deku, stop it. But I do feel like, again, we often forget, given how many seasons we're already getting, these characters are still within their first year of studying. They're still developing. It's kind of hard to remove yourself from that nerdy nature of yours. And I kind of like how he's still dorky and nerdy and he doesn't turn into a brawn character simply because that's what his power is about. Deku has always been about nerdiness, about braininess, and he retained that while ironically having a power that has something to do more with strength. So I understand, like, I totally get that. I like the nerdiness factor. I hate that he still has to grow yet as his own hero, but I do feel like this is definitely where the development that people are talking about can come in. Like, he can start realizing that he has to become more than just All Might's shadow or copy. You know, he has to be someone new. I feel like he started to waver and realize this a bit during the time that he found out that he wasn't supposed to be the successor for the One for All. But yeah, I guess again, that's definitely one aspect that I myself find annoying as well. Like, he has to learn to be his own hero starting now. That's what the other characters are doing. But again, at the same time, I do feel like it definitely has to do with just his personality of being a fanboy, and especially his power, like One for All, that's also manifested with the goodness that he's supposed to have. Again, the main idea of it is that giving yourself to basically everyone. So again, going back to the innate goodness that I was talking about, that in itself is a clue to why his character should be this way, if you get what I mean. So yeah. Now, last but not least, the comment that everybody else seemed to really say about him is that he's boring as a character. It's just flat out, he's just boring. A lot of characters are more interesting than him. And again, with everything else that I've explained earlier, this is where character interaction comes in. I do feel like, yes, if Deku by himself is just this one character, then definitely it would be the lamest shit ever. Like, watching someone who doesn't really, like, who's already perfect, that's kind of shit, right? But for this one, since we see him interact and we see his effect towards like other characters, so it's much more easier to see or to understand why he's definitely not a boring character. He's an essential character in the narrative, and I feel like other characters wouldn't really develop as much in terms of their thinking, and again in terms of how they view heroism, if it weren't for Deku. Again, that is what I feel like is he's symbolizing, very similar to how when Endeavor was asking All Might what makes a symbol of peace, like what is that all about, and All Might says you don't necessarily have to follow my idea of peace or being a symbol of peace. You can just make your own. It's the very same thing for this one. Like Deku, he tries to follow the path of All Might, but I do feel like he can definitely be a different type of symbol where he would embody what heroism, true heroism, especially in an age where everybody has quirks, everybody has powers. So what makes you stand out? It's this innate idea of being good, of being selfless, of exuding altruism without malice, without manipulation, without even false humility, but just pure wanting to save people's lives. So I think that's definitely like my defense for his character. Again, I'm not saying that 100% he's all good, blah blah blah. This isn't to justify like the things that we've noticed about his character that I mentioned early on in the video. But then again, like, you know, this is just my perspective as to why he has to be this type of character. And yeah, I rest my case. Tell me down in the comments below what are your thoughts on it. Just please don't fight me. But tell me down in the comments below what you think. Who's your favorite character in Boku No Hero Academia? Just tell me down in the comments below. If you like this video, please give this a thumbs up. And if you're new to my channel and you would want to hear more from me, please hit subscribe. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll be seeing you again soon in a new one. Tell me which anime you want me to talk about next. Bye!